Hello, everybody, and welcome to the LFC Transfer Room live stream with myself, Stu, Dylan, and Harry. Thank you guys so much for joining us on this wonderful Saturday afternoon where Liverpool still remain top of the Premier League following an ugly, ugly victory that we sort of held on for at the end, realistically, against Crystal Palace away from home. Always a tough venue to go to, but we keep a very stellar record there, thankfully, after today. Unfortunately, however, there are rumours of an Alexi McAllister injury. Hoping so, that it's a little knock. And the reason I say hoping so, it's an injury, so he doesn't have to fly to the other side of the planet for some international games. It'll be very handy. ALISSON, however, seems to have gone down with a bit of a pulled hamstring. Hopefully we'll know the severity of that in the coming days. I doubt we'll know anything about it until probably midway through the international break. But thankfully, he basically has 2 weeks to recover and rest and do nothing until we basically come back after the international break, which is good. Other than that, bit of an ugly victory, hard-fought victory. Palace looked very dangerous at times and really showed that they do have some quality in that side and really are underperforming. Very similar to Wolves last week, that I don't see Crystal Palace or Wolves being anywhere near where they are now in about 15 games' time. I can see them climbing the tables very rapidly. But I'll throw it over to my panel mates and see what everybody else thought. Stu, I'll come to you first and just give me a couple of your thoughts on the game as a whole, what you thought we'd done well, who sort of surprised you and who disappointed you.
For me, it was a proper Jekyll and Hyde performance. First off, I thought we were very comfortable to the point where we weren't taking the mick at all. It's been passed around. Jota could have had a couple of goals at least. Second half, it was weird. I get the system that I could see the system that Slot wants to play. We've all seen that now. It's been implemented very, very well. I think the one thing that the players are getting a little bit confused with is that whole holding onto the ball a little bit too long now and not being too killer with it, too decisive with the ball and finishing games off, which is what we should have done today in the first half. And we made a rod for our own backs. We made it difficult for ourselves. Let's not beat around the bush here. We let Palace into the game. We lost control of the game where we had it. Credit to Palace. They did give it a good go in, and I agree with you. I do believe that they'll be fine this season. I think that position in the table is all wrong for them. I think they've had a lot of turmoil in the summer window, so they lost a few players. It'll take time for them to kick back in, but back onto us. Overall, it's these ugly wins that you need to win titles. We all know that, and I think it's a case of we'll just chalk it off as a mediocre, ugly win. We got the 3 points. We're still top of the table. We still have the best defense in the league. Let's get the international break out of the way because that next run of fixtures is huge.
Yeah.
That is massive, that next run of fixtures, and it will go a long way to deciding how our season's going to go. I'd say probably by the end of the Villa game is when we'll really see how good our team is and whether we can actually bring it, because I don't think our team has at all really got out of third gear tops in games. So against the big clubs, this is where we need to see it.
Yeah, exactly. And that multiple, say about that 7-game stint that we have between the 20th of October and the 9th of November, Chelsea at home, Leipzig away, Arsenal away, Brighton at home, Leverkusen at home, and Villa at home. That's a gauntlet if ever I've seen one. And then immediately after that, Southampton away, Real Madrid at home, Man City at home. So over the next 10 games, it's a massive 10-game stint that we're looking to get ourselves into at the moment. It is a bit worrying, but if we can keep clean sheets, those games are way easier to win than if we're just conceding silly goals. And that's one thing that we needed to really shore up from last season, was just keeping a clean sheet and not conceding first. Dylan,
how frustrating? Yeah, it really was.
Yeah, it really it had me very frustrated.
Yeah, just have a shot and at least have a go at it. I mean, Jota's
obviously was very much
chances there. He should have a hat-trick, but yeah, frustrating.
It was. Dylan, how did you find the game? What were the positives and what were possibly the negatives that you found?
Well, first of all, I think it shouldn't be underestimated a win at Selhurst Park. It's a good win at the end of the day. A 1-0, you take the 3 points and you kind of move on from it. I think probably one of our better first halves. I think probably the best first half of this season so far. I think in terms of the control of the game, I think if we'd got a second goal to kill the game by halftime, I think the second half would be a much different game. And I think if we'd have buried that second chance potentially for Jota to put us 2-0 up, I think going into halftime 2-0 up with the way we controlled the game, I think then the game comes out, we probably win the game 2-3, 4-0 really. But I think we invited them back into the game with some of the frustrating chances that we ended up missing. And the second half, the header from Jota as well, if that buries it, I think again at that point, 60, 65 minutes, game's almost done then. I think then we started to almost try to score the perfect goal instead of just taking a shot potentially near the edge of the box or trying to finish it off. We almost tried to pass it into the goal rather than just having that killer instinct to finish it. And that invited the chances. It almost smelt like a Crystal Palace goal was coming. It felt like an equaliser was coming because they had those couple of chances. I think Mateta missed one, Eze missed one. I think Jaros at the end, I think fair play to the lad to get him making that save against Eze. It's good to see him come on and make that save, but a bit disappointing now potentially with Ali having that injury and potentially being out for a little while. By the looks of it, when he's slamming the floor, it doesn't look ideal. It looks like potentially it's going to be a bit of a while. So see what kind of happens with there with Kelleher stepping in and Jarosz potentially having to step up to the number 2 position a bit more often. But no, I think positively take the 3 points, stay top of the league and into this international break. I think see the positives where they are from it, take the 1-0 win and move on from it.
If we finished every game like that for the rest of the season, you can't really complain about it. It's just more so you'd expect against better sides that they'd be able to exploit some of them a bit more. But looking at it, just from looking at the game itself and the facts about the game, the whole we think that Palace had an awful lot of chances. Realistically, they didn't. So it was 32% possession to Palace, 0.64 expected goals, 9 shots, and 1 big chance. The one big chance they have was Eze, and that was it. Outside of that, they had nothing. Whereas us on the flip side, 68% possession, 1.39 expected goals, 16 total shots, and 4 big chances. Problem with that is Jota had 3 of those big chances, and he only converted 1 of them. And we do harp on about him being so clinical. He had an absolute nightmare of a game today. But Harry, I'll throw it over to you now and see how you feel about the game as itself. Are you very much in Dylan's camp as well of take a 1-0 victory at Selhurst Park? It's a tough place to go for any team. Win the game and be done with it and just get out of there with 3 points going into the international break.
Yeah, I agree with everything Dylan and Stu said, to be honest. I think, especially from past seasons, 12 kickoffs have been our nightmare, especially away from home. So to go there and take 3 points in any way, we're going to be happy with it, especially after how many times we've gone and dropped points in those 12 away games. I agree as well about Jota. Oh my God. I thought he'd come off at half time, to be honest, after you only got booked. And he got really lucky, I thought, on the challenge on Gahey, because it looked like he caught his ankle. And he was lucky to stay on. And then the whole second half, he was going in for challenges. I thought, we're going to get sent off here. And and he missed those 2 big chances. Well, he was very frustrating. I think Salah struggled to get into the game a lot as well. I think he started well. He was very out wide, wasn't he? And he was putting cross into the box. But in terms of getting into the box, he really didn't have a sight of goal at all, really. Apart from that, I mean, Virgil was great again. Apart from that little one at the end, that header, I thought, oh my word, it was a bit like Arsenal last season. But yeah, I think we'll take the 3 points and be happy with it.
Yeah, it's we can harp on about the negatives of the game, but realistically, if that's the result of every game going forward, we can't really complain about it. It's one of the ways with that. Oliver mentioned in here, they all count the same. The year Liverpool won the league, there were a lot of games like this. We take it 1 game at a time. Those early kickoffs are never easy to deal with, and boy, do we know that, considering Liverpool have the most, Liverpool away have the second most, and then the next one after that, I think, is Man City. So I think that's fucking nuts. Just having a look here. So Slot is confirming that ALISSON is likely out until the next international break, which is fucking when?
November time.
Oh, well, that's not too bad considering there's one now that basically, it's that I was thinking fucking March. I was going to be like, how do they assess that?
It looks like they've been managing that injury, because I'm just reading the quote here from Van Dijk saying that his hamstring injury was already bothering him and he was trying to recover from anyway.
He shouldn't have been starting. I suppose the problem was he didn't want to try. I'd imagine if it was a case of it was still bothering him, Kelleher would have started in that game, but the issue would have been Kelleher's ill, so that's why he didn't start. But I've all the faith in the world. Yeah, Kelleher was ill. That's why he wasn't with the squad today, unfortunately.
Okay, that's what I thought. I was hoping it wasn't like a big injury for Kelleher as well. Otherwise,
no, he was ill. That's all that was wrong with him.
Right.
But yeah, it's one of them that I've all the faith in the world in Kelleher. Kelleher is a world-class goalkeeper, has been for years. He's just unfortunately playing behind ALISSON, and that's the way it is. And I think this system actually suits Kelleher better because he's more comfortable with the ball at his feet, in my own opinion. But we'll just move on to a couple of other bits now, just looking at some of the stats from the game. Harry, I'll come to you first on who was the most disappointing in the game for you. And we'll just kind of take a look at some of the players and see how they actually performed on a numbers basis as well as sort of the eye test. So I know you mentioned Jota as well as how frustrating that he was, but he would have been up there for you for the most disappointing today.
Yeah, it just feels quite harsh because he obviously scored the goal. But I think if I had to single out one player that really bugged me all game, it would be Jota. Just for the challenges he was putting in. I thought, it's so risky. And then obviously the header at the end and the chances he missed. But I think, not to say he was bad, but Trent really didn't. I don't know. He was in the game, but I don't think he had the impact he usually has. It wasn't.
Yeah.
I don't know what was. I don't know if it was a bit off or he's a bit tired. I'm not sure what it was, but I don't know if anyone else sees it like that. He just seemed like he was a bit off the pace for some of the game. I don't know if anyone is.
No. He looked very pedestrian at times to me. It was just. I don't know. Is it just one of them games? Is it a situation where it's just he's kind of finding it hard to get the rhythm, and then there's people up in front of him, like Salah wasn't firing, and it's usually him, Salah, and Szoboszlai that are usually dynamite down that right hand side, and just Salah's lacking a bit, meaning that Trent has to do a little bit more, meaning he puts the ball in more precarious positions, and it's just a snowball effect from that point. Dylan, I'll throw the same question to you. Who would have disappointed you out of that? We mentioned Jota, we've mentioned Trent. Is there anybody else, or would you sit in the same camp as Harry?
Probably most frustrating for me in that game would have been Salah, because just waiting for him almost to do something, waiting for something to happen down that right hand side, like you touched on with him and Trent. And I think that could be why Trent almost had to drop a little bit deeper and almost have to have a one-on-one game with Eze at times, because you could see the two of them kind of talking to each other about who's taking each other on and stuff. So I think Salah not getting in the game as much today in terms of getting on the ball, even getting up to kind of support Jota at times, is a bit further out wide, almost like Mitchell was kind of pushing him out wide almost at times. But I just don't feel he was on the ball enough at times to really put them under kind of any pressure further up the pitch. I think when you look at the other side, Gakpo was linking up quite well with Tsimikas. I think Tsimikas had one of his better games for us today, to be honest. A very, very good game. So I think kind of when you look at the two sides together, if our right hand side was firing as much as our left hand side at times, I think it would have offered us a little bit more in the game. So I think it's hard to criticize at times in terms of some of the stuff he can do in one moment, but it feels at times like he could be pulled off at times if he has games like that. And I was actually quite happy to see that today, when he wasn't having the best game, Diaz did come on for him, and we almost reverted back to that 4-4-2 system where we're quite tight instead of just leaving it with Salah out there from 70 odd minutes. So for me, it'd probably be Salah wasn't really on it today for me.
Interesting. I think what happened today, Stu, is Trent played a much more defensive role today. And if he was battling Eze all day, he absolutely ruined him. Just going to read out a couple of Eze's stats here, because just purely out of interest, he had 2 shots, both of which saved. There's nothing really much about them. He only 1 of 5 successful dribbles, 1 of 4 accurate crosses, 1 of 3 accurate long balls, was dispossessed once. He won only 1 of 8 duels, 1 of 6 of them being on the ground, and he lost 3 aerial duels. Trent absolutely pocketed them. Trent and Konate absolutely put them in his pocket. Would you agree that it was more that it was just a defensive game from Trent today rather than an offensive one?
Yeah, but Trent can't defend, remember?
Oh, I know, but look at him goal against 70 million Eze and that Palace super team with 100 million Adam Morton and another 80 million Mark Gahey that fell down to a gust of wind in the penalty box.
That was a debatable decision as well. I think overall, I think Trent, he was definitely asked to play a little bit more defensive, and he showed that you can do it. But he was decent at it.
Against one of the most promising left wingers in the league, like
I think overall player, I wouldn't put Trent into that bracket of like sort of being one of the most disappointing. I think he just had a slightly different role in the game today. For me, again, I agree. Like sort of, I think it's either going to be Salah. He was just very, very quiet. He has the occasional off game. We'll allow it. It's fine.
Yeah.
We'll get over it. Jota for me was incredibly wasteful, and the point I pick up on Jota is, and you said it earlier on, is that Jota's usually very reliable on his finishing. He's still one of the best finishers in the squad. If it was the other way around and it was Nunes missing those couple of chances, the socials would be hounding him on that, and I think Jota deserves a little bit of the same treatment because
he won't get it.
Misses.
He won't get it.
He won't get it.
I put it in the group chat as well that after it happened, like it's Jota missing that absolute sitter, and I was like, if that was somebody else, and then the header, and then I was just thinking to myself, if that was Darwin Núñez that was up front, even if he scored the first goal, he would be getting crucified. But because it's not Darwin Núñez, nobody's mentioning a word of it. And Darwin Núñez has his flaws. But if you're going to keep the same energy for him, keep the same energy for Diogo Jota missing absolute fucking sitters.
I completely agree with Harry as well. It's something when I was watching the game with my next door neighbour, it's the one thing I picked up on is Jota's got to be careful in the second half because he put a challenge in on Gahey just before half time. I think it was a couple of minutes before. He clipped his ankle. The ref could have easily given him a second yellow card. Yeah. I was expecting Núñez to come on. But I
don't know why he didn't. Personally,
I've got my theory on that. I do think Núñez at the moment will be gone in the summer. I don't think Slot fancies him. I just don't think he's that type of player for Slot's system. Sad as it seems, but that's just football at the end of the day. And I think today's game was quite telling in that because Núñez could run backwards and forwards and he's really good at doing the pressing side. So why you didn't bring him on, I don't know. It's a bit of a weird decision for me, but hey, he's the manager. He's the one that gets paid to make those decisions.
Yeah.
So I think overall, player-wise, I think it's between Jota and Salah who underperformed today, even though Jota got the goal.
Yeah, it is worrying that it's look, Salah obviously loves playing against Palace, but didn't love it today, unfortunately.
No.
But before we finish up, we're going to get into our man of the match opinions. And for myself, it is actually Cody Gakpo. Cody Gakpo had an absolutely immense game today. Just having a look at the numbers alone on that. 82% passing, all of his dribbles were won, 75% of his accurate long balls, one more than he lost of his tackles, 9 defensive actions, 9 recoveries, 3 interceptions, won 6 of his 8 duels, won all of his aerial duels. He was just monstrous all game, and he got the assist as well. So I would have had Cody Gakpo up there realistically. John, just to jump on your point, 2 midfielders in January should have happened last summer. You mean last summer when we signed 4 of them, or the summer that just went when there was literally absolutely nobody available that's worth the price that was there? It just is what it is, realistically. Not a single one of them that was there in the summer was worth the price tags that they were asking for. Zubimendi was probably one of the only ones, and even at that, I think it's a stretch considering how he started the season this season. Real Sociedad looked absolutely wank. But Dylan, I'll come to you first in your man of the match option. Who would you have for that? Would it have been Gravenberch, Trent, Van Dijk, same as what the TNT crowd picked? Who would you have had as man of the match?
So I agree. Virgil had a very good game. I think him and Ibu now, the relationship starting to form there a little bit better in terms of some of the stuff. I know last week with Ibu he had that moment against Wolves, but overall quite solid now, the partnership between the two of them. Gravenberch, the way he's just spinning in that midfield and getting away from people is really starting to impress a lot of people. So yeah, it can't be enough said about him at the moment as well. Whilst I also agree Gakpo had a very, very good game, especially the first goal, a bit of movement down the left-hand side to then pull it back to Jota, I think was he had a really good game. But I think for me, the one that surprised me more in the game, and I think probably was on man of the match, was for me Shimmercast. I think the way he was supporting Gakpo down that side solidly alongside Virgil on that left-hand side as well. I think he really kind of got into the game a lot more than he usually did. And last time I saw him play West Ham game, he didn't have the best of games. So I think to improve in terms of how he did on that performance, I think today, I think for me, he was the one that surprised me most and probably would have been my man of the match.
Yeah, there's a couple that you really can't disagree with, and no, they weren't. They weren't denied a penalty. That would have been the softest penalty that has ever been given in the history of it, and it would only be given against Liverpool by Simon Hooper. So yeah, it's not a penalty, and anybody that thinks it was a penalty can argue with a wall. It wasn't. Harry, I'll throw it over to you for your man of the match. Would you be on Gakpo as well, or where would you be with that?
I'm totally happy with Gakpo. I think he was brilliant. I think he looked really sharp for the whole game, not just the first half like Jota. I think he looked really good. And especially that little sprint at the end where he knocked it round the defender. I've never seen him run that fast in my life, I don't think.
Yeah.
But yeah, he was class. If you want to add another name in, I think Curtis Jones really sort of stepped up to what everyone wants him to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I think his whole problem he has whenever he plays is people say he holds onto the ball too long, he doesn't make the right decision. But I think today he looked really sharp. Actually, I think he was playing the right passes. He was, he wasn't holding on to it for too long, and I was actually really happy with him for the whole game.
Yeah, I was as well. And Greenland holding the hand is not a penalty when the ball was absolutely nowhere near him. What was he going to do? Jump into Alisson's arms and try and header it? It didn't. It might have been a slight impeding of Mark Gahey, but it doesn't have an effect on the play whatsoever because Mark Gahey wasn't getting to the ball. That's the point of why it wasn't a penalty. It's not impeding play. It's just that is what it is. And we've had people been thrown around today in a game, and if you're not going to call that Mark Gahey penalty, we didn't get them ones called either. Gravenberch got dragged to the ground. Jota got thrown to the ground. Like Simon Hooper is a shocking referee, and Coote on VAR is no fucking better than him. But Stu, I'll throw it over to you before we finish up for this evening, or this afternoon, should I say. Who would you have rated as your man of the match? Would it have been Van Dijk, similar to the TNT broadcast, or would you have had Cody Gakpo, maybe Curtis Jones, maybe Ryan Gravenberch putting in another quiet but very, very good performance?
Getting a little bit bored of picking Grav out. I think I picked him out for the last few weeks. So I'm going to go opposite, actually. I'm going to go for Kanate. Again, quietly, just like Jones, just quietly went about his business and very solid and very astute in what he was doing. Like Dylan said, like the partnership that Kanate and Van Dijk are forming at the moment, absolute brick wall. 2 goals conceded this season in the league. That's phenomenal, considering what we were like last season.
Is it 2? It is 2. Wolves scored one, didn't they?
Yeah. 2 goals. 2 goals in what?
4 goals all season. West Ham won, Wolves won, Forest won, and Milan won. 4 goals.
Considering how bad we were at conceding the goal first last season to now, it's a phenomenal turnaround. Absolutely phenomenal. So yeah, Kanate. But again, you could pick out Gakpo. You could agree. Tsimikas had a fantastic game. Gakpo had a great game. Jones quietly went about it. Van Dijk was brilliant. But for me, this time, Kanate. That's who I'm going to go for.
Yeah. No, to be fair, there was a couple of options. Like, there was obviously Kanate, Trent on the defensive side of it. Gravenberch, just another fucking unbelievable game. Van Dijk obviously was named man of the match. Tsimikas could have been named man. Alisson could have been named man of the match too with all of his saves. Gakpo, phenomenal with his assist. I wouldn't have even gone near Jota with it purely because of all the misses. Salah had a bit of a howler, and Jones had a very solid game as well, coming off the bench for his first start of the season. Very, very good. But yeah, that super team of Crystal Palace with £100 million Adam Morton, £80 million Mark Gahey, and £70 million Eze looking very well, aren't they? But no, look, they'll figure it out. They'll turn it around. I'm glad that we got the Selhurst Park out the way early and got 3 points out of there, because I don't see them being on this form for the rest of the season, because they could have easily won that game 3 or 4-0, as we could have won that game 3 or 4-0. It was very open. But the key point about it was we didn't concede. We won the game. We were 3 points. We're sat in the top of the league. Nobody can touch us. It doesn't matter about the results of the other game. Speaking of the other games, if they started yet, they have indeed. What's going on in the other games currently at the moment?
Any goals?
I'm going to tell you now. Let's have a look here.
1-1 at Brentford.
Who scored for Brentford?
West Ham are 1-0 up. Collins scored for Brentford, and then Cunha scored for Wolves. And Antonio in the first.
Brentford 1-1. West Ham 1-0 up on Ipswich. Man City 0-0. Leicester 0-0, and Arsenal 0-0. Just in case you wanted to know Arsenal's lineup, Thomas Partey is playing at right back. just in case you wanted to know anything about how Arteta sets up his squads. Absolute fucking terrorist. He is just absolutely fucking nuts. But we are going to leave it there, guys. Coming up on just under half an hour. Thank you so much for joining us. Over 2,000 people that are here now at the moment. Make sure to like and subscribe if you haven't done so already. Make sure your notifications are on for all future streams and videos so that you never miss out on any future content. Thank you for joining us. And if you're watching over on X at the moment, or Twitter as it used to be called, jump over to our YouTube channel. The link is in the bio of the page as well. So make sure you jump over for that. Thank you guys so much for joining us. We hope everybody has a wonderful day. We'll be back again later on this evening at 7:30. So make sure you stick around for that too. Everybody, see you later. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.